Okie dokie, live once again. Hello, fellow travelers. Get my notes ready. Oh, my hair. Hermione's hair twin today, jeez. Oh, what a sight I am. Anyway. Once again. Some crumbs in it this time. Well, yet another monster. Still not sponsored, but we wouldn't say no. There we go. Gonna wait a couple minutes for people to join the live so class can start. This is the boring bit where no one's showed up yet. So I just have to waffle like a little waffle. Oh, all my random bits of notepaper are just fluttering and flying everywhere. There's some notifications, but no, this is scintillating viewing right now. I'm sure it is. Just waiting while people join, and then we can start this week's live, covering the final 3 races of the Player's Handbook. And this music again is by the Feichters. They do a lot of fantasy music, and I've been listening to their stuff for God knows how many years. So that's what's playing in the background. It is not mine, it is theirs, and amazing. Okay, I might turn that down a little bit. Find the volume switch. There we go. Here we go, just don't mind me. Still not used to lives, but there we go. We'll get there in the end. Oh, yuck. I'm going to get going. I'm going to start. Class is in session once again for D&D 101. So, last week we covered the human, dragonborn and gnome races. This week we are covering half-elf, half-orc and tiefling races. Excuse me. These are the final 3 races in this 2014 Player's Handbook. I know there are other playable races, but like I said, I'm just covering the ones that are in this one. So 2014 D&D Player's Handbook, and these are the final 3. So without further ado, we shall dive right in. So first of all, we have half-elves, and as their names would suggest, half-elf and typically half-human, and they generally tend to feel like they're between worlds. They're kind of slightly too elven to really fit in with humans, and slightly too human to really fit in with elves. They are they are welcome in like human lands and human societies, slightly less so in elven forests and things like that. And because of this, they choose. Some of them choose to wander and lead a solitary lifestyle. Some choose to find other half-elves and create a small kind of society with just them. They spend time with them because they know, half-elves know how half-elves feel. So it's nice to be with people that understand your plight, understand your situation and things like that. Others find another band of misfits and start adventuring. I mean, I'm pretty sure that bands of misfits, that's just every single D&D party ever. Even though, like I said, they are half-elf, they do share the elven wanderlust. So, like I said in one of the previous episodes, one of the previous lives rather, elves like to wander. They are one of the longest lived races, so they can wander for as long as they like to indulge in gaining skills and things like that at their leisure. And half elves they've inherited that from their elven side. Although it's not true of all of them, because some stay in cities and human societies and things like that and try and really bed in. They use their innate charisma to either try and be a diplomat, or they can kind of go the opposite way and kind of become a swindler or turn to a life of crime. Name-wise for half-elves, it's a little bit different. If a half-elf is brought up with humans, they will typically be given an elven name. But if they were brought up with elves, they would typically be given a human name, just kind of driving home the point that they are between worlds. They don't really fit in anywhere. Some of the names... there's not actual name examples given for half-elves. So I guess, like with the elves or humans, you could choose from either of those, or like I've said with each of the races, you can just go on the internet and find one of the many name generators out there and just use one of those instead. For half-elves, the ability score, you get a +2 to your charisma and a +1 to 2 others. So you could choose, say, constitution and strength, or you could choose intelligence and wisdom. It's completely up to you. Age-wise, they mature at the same rate as humans, so late teens, early 20s, but they live to be 180. So they will outlive their human parents, but they will not outlive their elven parents. As I stated previously, elves live to be round about 750, so they're nowhere near as old as their elven parents, but they will outlive their human parents. Alignment-wise, they tend towards chaos, like their elven parents. Last live, the humans, it's a wide range for humans alignments-wise. You get the very best, you get the very worst, but elves tend towards chaotic. They tend towards the good and the neutral. Size-wise, they're very similar. They're similar to humans, although they're not as broad as humans, but they're not as slender as elves either. They're kind of, halfway between. But they do range between 5 and 6 feet tall. They can be 100 to 180 pounds, and they would be a medium size. Walking speed is 30 feet. I know that the Wood Elf has 35 feet of movement, and for the very first thing that I DM'd was a campaign that I had made myself, but being very, very, very inexperienced, I didn't really know what it meant to make a campaign. So we did quite a few sessions. It was really, really good. I did learn a lot. But my brothers played half-elves, and their elven parent was a wood elf. So rather than having 30 foot of movement, I did allow them to have 35 feet of movement to reflect the fact that they had grown up with their elven mother and human father, but they had learned, how to move around the forest and things like that. So I did give them the extra 5 foot of movement. Some DMs might not allow that, so obviously that's something that you might want to speak to your DM about if you were wanting to have the elven parent be a wood elf. But that's something that I did. So half elves again have dark vision, which is superior vision in dark and dim conditions. You can see in dim light within 60 feet as if it were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light. So, dark vision. Every DM's bane, I guess. Like the elves, half-elves have Fey ancestry, which means you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. So, as I've said previously, advantage is rolling your d20 twice and taking the highest number. You gain proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. Again, we'll reach proficiency when we get to that bit in the player's handbook. Sorry, I thought my boyfriend was coming through the door then. Language-wise, half-elves know Common, Elvish, and another one of their choice. That is it for the half-elves, and now we're moving on to half-orcs. Another half-race, usually born from alliances, marriage alliances between orcish and human tribes. So it's not usually something that would have been done for love, but more of a marriage alliance. Some half-orcs rise to be great leaders of orcish tribes. Some will go the complete opposite way and rather than, what's the word I'm looking for? Embrace their, the savagery of their orc parents. They will try and embed themselves in polite society and prove that they're not all brutes like their parents. Others, they embrace their savagery and their brutality, and they will use that to gain notoriety while adventuring. Again, not all of them, but that's what they tend towards. Also, for battle scars, I did mention this in a video that I did a while ago as a homebrew rule in our campaigns and one-shots. If you hit 0 hit points and then you get brought back, so if you're healed and you get brought back upon a few hit points, you will have a scar. And it's not mechanical or anything. It won't impose disadvantage on, say, spell casting or melee or ranged attacks or anything like that. It's just, for example, if you'd been hit with an arrow, maybe you've got like a pockmark in the shoulder, or if you were bitten by a wolf or a bear, you might have like bite marks on the shoulder or the arm or somewhere else. And it's just like a little fun homebrew thing that we do. I totally ripped it off Rusty Quill Gaming, so it's not my original idea, but we like it, so we use that. But for half-orcs, they tend to be very, very proud of their scars, and one of my brothers, his character Grogurk in our Curse of Strahd campaign, he is very, very proud of his scars. He wears them loud, he wears them proud, and anyone who asks, he will go into great detail how we got each and every single one of them. My character Vola, she's my half-orc ranger, and it's not that she's not proud of them, but she was brought up in a polite society, if you will. She was brought up by a family and community of orcs, but they're very peaceful. They make wine, they own a vineyard and raise cattle and things like that, and they trade with cities and towns and things like that. So they're not your stereotypical orcish brutish tribe. So it's not that she's not proud of her scars, but she won't boast about them either. So it's just kind of like showing the two differences in, 2 half-orcs. One's very, very loud and proud about his scars, and the other is just pretty much indifferent, to be honest. Also, some half-orcs might have been brought up as slaves whilst in orc tribes, and again, some may show those slavery scars as proudly, some might hide them in shame. And I think I may mispronounce this, but the one-eyed god who created the orcs, Grumsh, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the god who created the orcs, his presence is still felt by half-orcs. Even though they are born of an orc and a human, they still feel his influences, so they will feel emotions extremely strongly, whether or not they are negative emotions or positive emotions. So they could feel an insult as if they've been like stung by an ant, or stung by a bee or something like that. They would feel physically hot if they were enraged, but on the opposite side, they put their heart and soul into dancing, drinking, feasting and that sort of thing, and it fills their heart with joy. And another I'm going to use Grogurk as an example for this as well. He protects his friends. He's very, very loyal to his friends and things like that. But if you get on the wrong side of him, you will be on the wrong side of his rage, both mechanically and non-mechanically, because he's a barbarian. So Grogurk's a very, very good example of feeling all those emotions just really, really strongly. Turning the page. So Half-Orcs do tend to live in orc tribes, but they can be found in human lands as well, human society. Humans are most likely to accept the uncommon races, which Half-Orcs would come under the uncommon races. Name-wise for orcs, depending on where they've been brought up, where they were born, will depend on like the culture and how they're named. But some, when they grow up, if they want to try and fit in with a politer society, they might swap their orcish name for a human name instead. And vice versa, if they want to kind of pave their way and use intimidation, they might use their orcish name, and the orcish language can seem quite harsh and guttural, so it would be a good way to kind of, you know, scare people into doing whatever they want. Some of the names, example-wise, we've got Dench, Feng, Ront, Thok. Those are male names. Some female names would be Emin, Kansif, Niga, Ovak, Yvelda, things like that. But again, you can always go and use a name generator if you don't like any of those. Ability scores for orcs, half-orcs rather. You get a +2 to your strength and a +1 to your constitution. Age-wise, they mature slightly quicker than humans. Humans will mature at late teens, early 20s, and half-orcs rather are considered mature at 14, but they won't live as long. So whereas humans, they live to around about 80, half-orcs will live to about 70, 75. Alignment-wise, they do tend towards chaotic from their orc parents, and those raised by orc tribes do tend to be evil. But like I've said in previous lives, that's not the be-all and end-all. Just because it says it in the player's handbook doesn't mean you have to have a chaotic evil orc if you don't want growing up in an orcish tribe. Size, they're taller and heavier than humans, being between 6 and 7 feet tall, and up to 250 pounds. Their size would be medium as well. Speed, again, they have 30-foot movement, and yet another race who has dark vision. Half-orcs are menacing, which means they get the proficiency in the intimidation skill. And they also, as a racial bonus, they have relentless endurance. And there's so many times that I have just praised the fact that either my character Vola or my brother's character Grogurk has had relentless endurance. It's saved us so many times. So relentless endurance is, once you reach 0 hit points during combat, you can choose instead to reach 1 hit point instead. So, you know, you get knocked down, but then, you know, you've got that anger and the fury and the I can't think of the words. So you've got the anger, the fury, the endurance to stand back up. You've still got that 1 hit point left, but you can only use it once every long rest. So, just to reiterate the differences between short and a long rest. A short rest is about an hour, so you're not doing anything strenuous. It's usually after a particularly hard combat that people take a short rest. It's about an hour. And a long rest is at least 8 hours. You would have to stop. You'll have to eat something, drink something. It could be something as simple as water out of a skin, or just a ration, and at least 6 hours of sleep. Or as an elf, you'd have to do your 4 hours of meditation. So that's a short and a long rest, and relentless endurance can only be used once every long rest. But again, the amount of times, especially in our Curse of Strahd campaign, Grogurk's been sent to 0 hit points, and he's used his relentless endurance, and Yeah, he's been able to save our backsides in more ways than one. So as a half-orc, you also get savage attacks. So when you get a critical hit with a melee attack, so a critical hit would be, if I can find it, there you go, you get a natural 20. That's a critical, and you would roll double the damage die for that. But with savage attacks, you would get to add another damage die. So depending on the weapon type, it would be a d12 of damage, or there we go, a d10, or a d8. Those are the most usual damage die as well. You do get d6 and d4, but I think with like long swords and short swords and the long bows and the short bows and things like that, and you've got your great axes, those, the d8, 10 and 12, they're the most common damage die. Language wise, for half-orcs, you know Common and Orcish, and like I said, Orcish is quite guttural. It's quite harsh, and it doesn't have its own script, but it does use the Dwarven script. That's it for the half-orc. Hydrate with my monster, which I know doesn't make sense, but just go with it. And the final race we're going to go through is the Tiefling. So, like I said, with the Dragonborn, Tiefling is one of the more uncommon races. So, like I said, if you want to play a Tiefling, then I would just double check with your DM to see if it's okay to play as a Tiefling, because their setting might not work for them. Another example, going back to our Strahd campaign again, we originally started off with 5 players, and two of the guys, they wanted to play Tieflings. And the DM said, you can, but just please be aware that it's not going to be a very nice experience. For those who played Curse of Strahd, if you know, you know, but for those who don't, it's a very dark, it's a very, very dark campaign to play. It's not nice in certain aspects at all, and he said if you're going to play a Tiefling, you are going to come across a lot of discrimination. You're going to come across a lot of NPCs who are going to really, really not trust you at all, and their behaviour is going to reflect that. So again, like I said, if it's your first time playing, yeah, very dark indeed it is. The amount of things that we've gone through during that campaign. So like I said, especially if it's your first time playing D&D and you want to play a Tiefling, I would just double check with your DM, because it wouldn't be a very nice experience as a first time player to have NPCs be mistrustful and discriminatory towards you because of that reason. And the reason they are so mistrusted is because way back in their ancestry, like potentially hundreds of years ago, one of their ancestors made a pact, and the essence of Asmodeus or Asmodeus runs through their bloodline. So it's not their fault. You know, a Tiefling is born, and because of something that one of their ancestors did a couple of centuries ago, they are cursed to be mistrusted and mistreated. And even though they are human-ish looking, that infernal bloodline has given them very distinct physical traits. You know, most notably the horns, which can be kind of curved like a ram's, or they can be straight like an antelope's, or anything like that. Again, it depends on how you want to design or characterize your Tiefling. They also have tails, which can be like 4 or 5 feet long. They also have pointed canines, so that would be apparent when they speak, or especially when they smile. They also have their eyes are completely one solid colour, so they won't have a pupil, they won't have an iris, it'll just be one solid colour, potentially like black or red or white or something like that. Skin colour is another thing as well, so they'd have the human range of skin colour, but it could also have like hues of red in there as well. I know there's a few people that say, you know, you can't have a blue tiefling, you can't have a purple tiefling, you can't have a green tiefling, but I guess it's your tiefling. If you want to have a green tiefling with, like, you know, red scaly patches, go for it. It's your character, design them how you like. I'm having chicken stew for tea, it feels right whilst listening to this live. Are you eating it out of a wooden bowl? That's the most important question. Where was I? So, like I said previously, the tieflings being in the minority, they are found in like human societies and human cities. No, but it feels like I'm in a tavern. Well, I'm glad I can provide the ambience. Turn the music up a little bit. In a tavern, listening to someone spin a wild yarn of tieflings. So with tieflings being in the minority, but they will be found in, say, like human cities and human societies. That being said, they are most commonly found in the roughest parts. So they would usually tend to a life of crime, become pickpockets, swindlers and things like that. Because they are in the minority, they are mistrusted, they are discriminated against, they know that they have to be strong because they're on their own. They need to be strong in order to make it in this life. So they're very, very slow to trust. You're not going to... I've always wanted to play a tiefling bard. Next one shot. Next one shot with DM, tiefling bard. So yeah, like I said, they're slow to trust, but once you do show trust and loyalty and things like that, and it's, you know, sincerity toward a tiefling, they will pay it back in kind. They will be a very strong, very, very close ally and friend. But like I said, they are slow to trust, and it'll be hard to get them there. I feel like I've said trust a lot in the past 2 minutes. So name-wise, the names fall into a few categories. So they'd have a name, like, depending on the culture and where they were born, where they were brought up, but also they may have an infernal name, brought on by the infernal bloodline, but also a virtue name. So something that they would want to perhaps embody. Say they wanted to, you know, I want to be the embodiment of hope. That's they might take hope as a virtue name. So some of the like infernal names might be male infernal names, Melich, Therai. I'm gonna butcher all these. Mordai, Eidos. Female infernal names, Acta, Anarchis, Nemea, Rieta. Virtue names, things like chant, creed, excellence, glory, but also things like despair, fear, random, and sorrow. So I guess, like, depending on what you want your tiefling to embody. And Susan. Okay, next one shot. You are playing a tiefling bard called Susan. I'm not taking no for an answer. But yeah, so depending on what your tiefling wants to embody, would have, they would choose that as their virtue name. Ability score wise, for tieflings, you get a +1 to your intelligence and a +2 to your charisma. Age, they mature at the same rate as humans, so again, about late teens, early 20s, but they live a few years longer. Put my tooth back in. Alignment, they do tend towards chaos, and there's no innate evil in a tiefling, but they can end up that way anyway due to their infernal bloodline. But again, like I've said in previous lives, it's not the be all and end all. If you want to have a chaotic good tiefling, then that's what you want. It's your character, design them however you like. Size, typically tend to be the same as humans, between 5 and 6 feet tall, 155 to 250 pounds, and the size would be medium. You get 30 foot of movement speed, and again, another race with dark vision. You get hellish resistance, so that is, you are resistant to fire damage. So any fire spells, any fire damage, you would take that damage, but you would half it. Rather like a barbarian, whilst raging, having been resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So tieflings also have an infernal legacy, so they get access to the thaumaturgy cantrip, which means you can basically cast minor wonders. My dwarven cleric Erin, she uses thaumaturgy quite a bit, usually to make her voice louder, to shut up her insufferable party members when they keep squabbling over dumb shit. And you tell I'm getting passionate about it. But also with thaumaturgy, you can change the colour of a flame, change the colour of your eyes. You can make a sound emanate from any point within range. It's only a 30-foot range because it's a cantrip. It's not a very powerful spell. You can make other sounds like thunder or birds twittering, wind whispering through trees, things like that. Another one. Something else that you get at level 3 is Hellish Rebuke. You can cast that at 2nd level. So that's a reaction that you get, and an enemy within range is surrounded by hellish flames. And again, at level 5, you get to cast Darkness, which is magical darkness. And non-magical torches won't light it up, and characters with dark vision won't be able to see. It lasts for 10 minutes, and if it's cast on an object, the darkness moves with that object. So if you were to move the object, the range of darkness would move with that object as well. Both of these, so both Hellish Rebuke and Darkness, use the Charisma as the spellcasting ability, and can only be used like the Relentless Endurance. They are only able to be used once every long rest. Language-wise, you know Common and Infernal, and that's it for the races. So I just put like one last little note. It's kind of a stereotype about tieflings that that's all gay people want to play. And as I was describing D&D, I was going through the races and the classes with a couple of friends of mine, and I came to the tiefling, and my friend, her eyes lit up, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'd really like to play a tiefling." And I told her that, and she just like, "You know what? I don't care. I'll be a stereotype, the lesbian tiefling." I just wanted to add that. I thought it was really funny. She had no idea about the stereotype, but she fit it perfectly. So I'm going to say that I'm not going to be doing a live next week. I will be taking a week off, but I'll be live. I'll be back the Friday after, and we will go through the classes. I don't know if anybody watching has any questions, so I'll quickly go through what classes there are, if anyone wants to ask a question. Sad face. I will be back the week after, so I'm just having the 1 week off. I promise. Then I will be back to D&D 101. So the classes, like I said before, I know there are more classes than what I'm going to read out now, but can't wait, learning so much. I'm very glad. I've never been one for teaching, but if you're learning, then that's all that matters. Learning, but also wanting to play at some point in the future. So the classes that I'll go through are Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. So those are the classes in the 2014 D&D Player's Handbook. Like I said before, I know there are more player races, I know there are more D&D classes to play, but I'm just going to go through the bog standard Player's Handbook and we will see where we get to. Also, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to fit it into the lives. I know I've done 3 races per live, but I think if I did the Barbarian, Bard and Cleric in one live, I think I might be here until midnight. So I will go through, I will be going through the lives, not the lives, I'll be going through the classes and the notes and going into detail, and I will figure out how to set them out. So yes, we've gone through, the races once again. So the last couple of lives, we've gone through the Dwarf, the Elf, and that's a Drow, a Dark Elf. We've gone through Halflings. I'm trying to make it so it's not shiny, so you can see the actual artwork. And gone through humans. So those 4 would be the most common races, and the others would be the uncommon races, such as the Dragonborn, and the Gnome. And then we had this week's live covering the Half-Elf, the Half-Orc, again trying to make it so that you can see it, and finally the Tiefling. I'm also thinking that once we have finally made our way through the player's handbook, I might try and see if I can just make a random character on a live and get people to do the same. Just basically incorporate everything that I've gone through and make a character with you guys. So yeah, like I said, next week I'm going to take a break from lives, but I will be back the week after, and I will keep you all updated on with the weekly Hump Day Dump Days, and yeah. Oh, that'd be fun. That would be fun. Make a character and you have to play. You have to play. Okay, so I think with that I am going to end this live, and thank you to everyone who's watched, everyone who's liked, and I see your smiley faces. We will get you to play eventually. You mark my words. Okie doke. I'm going to end this live now. Thank you to everyone who has watched, everyone who has liked, everyone who has contributed. It does mean a lot. So I will see you in 2 weeks. See you next time. When I can end this live.